If all you know about Minneapolis is what you have seen in the national headlines for the past 5 years or so, you probably think we're all insane, and you probably think we are living in some kind of third world war zone. The reality is, nothing could be further from the truth, and that's why I'm making this video, because I think what you find here would actually shock most of you. So stick around. For the next 10 to 15 minutes, we are going to have a very serious, very real, very intimate conversation about what life in Minneapolis is actually like. You know, over the last 5 years, Minneapolis has been in the national spotlight quite a bit. It really started in 2020 when Minneapolis had the very unfortunate George Floyd event, and ever since then, it kind of just feels like it's been one thing after the other. And I think a lot of people who have never lived here have built a picture of this city that at best is probably incomplete, and in a lot of cases is just flat out wrong. If someone moved to Minneapolis or the Twin Cities today, what would actually surprise them most compared to what they've heard in the national media? And I think there would be a lot that would surprise you. Let's get into it. I should introduce myself probably as I'm taking you through this conversation today. My name is Chris. I will be 46 in 5 days. I have spent about 40 out of my 46 years of life right here in the Twin Cities. Real estate agent extraordinaire. We help people make a move all the time and talk about stuff like this. Contact information is all right here. It's also down below. If you want to have this conversation in more detail, I'd love to chat. Let's keep going. So where do you start a video like this? You know, with the question in mind of what would surprise people the most who move to Minneapolis right now? And to be honest with me, this is an easy place to start. The answer is this. What would surprise you the most? What would surprise you is just how normal this place feels and how it is, for the most part, nothing like what you see on the national headlines. I watch the news too. I mean, I try not to, but I do. And man, if I only watched the news, I think I'd feel like Minneapolis was like Beirut, a war zone. You know, that's what I see painted in the national headlines a lot, and depending on who's talking, Minneapolis is referred to as a city in decline, all of these things. It's not the case. It is definitely not the case. I can tell you here, Minneapolis, for the vast majority, the key word is majority, not all of us, life looks like life. People grab coffee, people are walking their dogs, heading to work, meeting friends, going out to eat, spending time at the parks or lakes. Maybe not so much right now because it's winter, but you know, they're living their lives. You do not go around town and see violence on street corners. You don't see Operation Ice and Metro Surge everywhere. There's not rampant fraud at every corner of the city. Absolutely, Minneapolis has had its challenges and it is not perfect, and I'm going to talk about that on and off through the course of this video. But you guys that don't live here, man, like Minneapolis has not been painted what the daily life is like accurately at all in the national media. As somebody who watches it, it bothers me. So for what it's worth, from a local perspective, for someone who's been here for almost 46 years, I can tell you, daily life in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, is good. It feels normal. It is without disruption. It is nothing like you see in the national media. It's just not. What would surprise you most if you moved to Minneapolis today? I think the second part of this is understand that your experience with Minneapolis would and will vary greatly depending on where in the city you go. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is talking about Minneapolis like it is all one thing. The whole city has one vibe, one feel, one lifestyle, one reality at all. As someone who's been here for a long time, I will tell you your experience with Minneapolis will depend heavily on where you go in this city. Some parts of the city feel very quiet and residential, places like Linden Hills. Some are more active and urban, like North Loop. Some are more neighborhood orientated. Some feel more transitional. Some areas are a great fit for someone who wants walkability. I can go on and on. Minneapolis is a very diverse place with a whole lot of different vibes and feels. As an example, you know, what in the national spotlight, I have seen it a lot here in Minneapolis. You've seen images of the Target burning in the background and rioting and looting. I will tell you, almost all of those clips that they keep getting replayed, almost all of those come from the area called Uptown, and the vast majority all occurred right around the George Floyd incident, okay? And the narrative has become Uptown is dying, Minneapolis is dead, it's a city in decline. Yes, let's be honest, Uptown has had a rough go of it since George Floyd. However, the city has not died, the energy has not died. Go look at the North Loop. Okay, what I would argue as someone who's lived here through this and been here is what really happened was, as a result of events that occurred, absolutely, we can't pretend otherwise, Uptown got its butt kicked, but it did not die. That energy has really relocated and moved over to this part of the city called North Loop. That place is vibrant. It is awesome at the moment, okay? So my point is, if you've been in Uptown or North Loop over the past 3, 4, 5 years, you've had a completely different experience with this city, okay? Some of Minneapolis's most desirable neighborhoods, Southwest Minneapolis, that's where you get Linden Hills, Lyndhurst, all these areas around our famous chain of lakes. These are some of the nicest, most beautiful residential pockets in the city. I do not live there, to be clear, to be honest, but I spend an awful lot of time there. And what I think I can say pretty confidently, I think the residents of those neighborhoods would tell you they have had some emotional challenges and setbacks, seeing their city get its butt kicked continuously on the national stage. As far as day-to-day life, I think we would tell you life for the most part is good. It hasn't changed. There's not criminals on the corner, right? There's not ICE collecting illegal immigrants around every corner. We can go out at night. Crime is not rampant. You don't get that picture in the national narrative. So, when people ask these broad questions of what is Minneapolis like, the answer is really, well, what kind of life are you trying to build and what is your jam? Where do you want to be? Because that is the real answer, okay? Minneapolis is very diverse, and depending on where you are, you can have a very different experience. Imagine going through your whole life being defined by your worst moments, because that kind of brings me to my next point, and I feel like that's unfortunately what's happened with Minneapolis here over the past 5 or 6 years is it's like we're frozen and we keep getting defined by some of these ugly moments that, yes, we absolutely have to acknowledge it have happened. And absolutely, Minneapolis has some stuff to figure out for sure. I will be the first one to tell you that. We are having issues with commercial tax base downtown dissipating, and that's in part from some of the civil unrest. It's also a lot to do with going to remote style work. I don't think this is fully a Minneapolis problem at all. We've got a Minneapolis police force that has been very understaffed ever since the George Floyd event. And, we have areas of the city that are still rebounding. So I'm not sitting here to tell you that everything is perfect and hunky-dory and come on down. That would be BS, and that's kind of not something I'm into. But the flip side of that is I do feel like Minneapolis is now being, memorialized, frozen in time, whatever you want to call it, with its worst moments. And that is not fair. I don't think it's fair to define a city and act like it's frozen in its hardest moments. That is also not honest. So to me, Minneapolis is a city, we definitely have some scars. We just talked about them. We are a work in progress to some degree. I would go as far as to say parts of Minneapolis in 2026, yeah, they are more for the resilient. They are for people who see an opportunity here, who see a rebirth rather than a picture-perfect storybook city. If you're looking for that picture-perfect storybook city, Minneapolis probably is not it at the moment. But that being said, we are also not defined by these moments. And I'm rambling and I'm going to keep repeating myself. So I'm going to wrap this section up. But I think both of these, that's kind of my point, is both of these things can be true at the same time, right? Minneapolis does have some things we're working through. We do have some scars. I think most places probably do, guys. But I don't think it's fair to define us by that. The repeating footage that you see in the national media, things of that nature, playing our worst moment over and over and over again, that's not helpful, and it's not the reality. The next thing on my mind here as I chat with you guys about this in Minneapolis is Minneapolis and daily life are a lot more enjoyable and livable than I think most people assume. Minneapolis really is a great place. It is not perfect. It is not for everybody. But it is genuinely very livable in a way that I think a lot of outsiders do not expect or understand, and certainly not the way it's been presented in the media past 5 or 6 years. There is a rhythm to life here that people genuinely end up appreciating, and there is a lot of fantastic things that come with Minneapolis, and frankly Minnesota. We have one of the best park systems in the country, year over year. We are consistently ranked one of the happiest cities despite everything that has happened. We are still consistently ranked one of the happiest cities in the country. I already mentioned with the trail system, the parks, the lakes, some fantastic neighborhood spots. I will tell you what, Minneapolis has a music and foodie scene that will compete with anybody on the national stage. Yes, with anybody. I believe we are second only in theater seats per capita to New York City. We've got plenty of James Beard winning chefs around town. There are some great restaurants. There are some great music spots. I've done videos on this. The art scene in Minnesota, specifically Minneapolis, it'll blow your doors off once you get here, just how diverse it is, how much there is to offer, and how much that's I would say that's a cultural value for this city. It's a big deal. And I think this matters a lot, especially for you guys that are out of state, because obviously you should ask and you should consider, does this city have problems? And you should know what they are. And I would also say every city has problems, right? So it's one thing to ask if, does a city have problems? I think the more important follow-up question to ask is, are you actually going to enjoy your daily life there? I mean, you can move to some perfect city if it exists, and if life is boring as hell, there's nothing to do and you hate it, who cares? I think that's just worth mentioning. The right people, Minneapolis is a home run. People that enjoy your routines, they enjoy the access to nature, they enjoy the neighborhood feel, the pace, the local identity. It can be a very easy place to build a life if what it offers matches your value, frankly. I'd be very curious to know what you guys out in YouTube land think of this. Locals, share your perspective in the comments. Am I way off base, or do you think for the most part life is pretty good and a lot more normal than most people think? Yeah, like we talked about, we have our problems. What drives me nuts and what I do not want in the comments is, people who live out of state, who have never spent any time here, who have seen a national headline or two, and then make up their mind and declare Minneapolis a pile of crap or a war zone. Respectfully, if you haven't been here, if you haven't spent time here, you don't know. So, just my 2 cents. This kind of leads me to what I think is kind of perhaps maybe the most important thing to understand from this video. And that is that Minneapolis has a very distinct personality. And this matters, I think, more than people realize, because the better question is not, is Minneapolis a good place to live? The better question is, would you enjoy living here, right? To me, Minneapolis has a very distinct feel. You've heard of Minnesota nice. That's kind of a thing. Minneapolis is a very thoughtful place. I will tell you that. Community is a very big deal here. Neighbors, all of that stuff. It takes a little while. That's part of the personality of Minneapolis and this whole Minnesota nice. I've talked about this in other videos. That does not mean you're going to make best buddies in the first 2 weeks. One thing about Minnesota's personality, it does take people a while to get you into their social circles. But once they do, that's an extremely important value for Minneapolis, is that social connection, the neighborhood vibe, all of those things. Minneapolis is a very outdoorsy city. If you like to get outdoors in almost any capacity, Minneapolis absolutely knocks it out of the park. It's a seasonal place. We have 4 seasons. You are scared of a little ice and snow, that should definitely be on the radar. And I will also say, Minneapolis is probably a little bit more reserved than a lot of people expect. And, of course, this depends on where you're coming from. Like, if you're coming from South Florida, the people and a lot of what you see in Minneapolis are going to feel pretty reserved to what you'd see on the beach of Miami, right? So just something to have in mind. Minneapolis is not the most flashy city, and it's definitely not trying to be. And I think for a lot of us that are here, that's exactly why they love it. They're not trying to be the flashy city. For the rest of you guys, maybe that doesn't connect in the same way. Maybe people want something more high energy, more fast paced, more, outwardly social, more polished. And if that is what you're looking for, I can't tell you that's Minneapolis's jam. And I actually think that's helpful to say, right? Because my goal with these videos, I don't want to convince anybody of anything. The goal is just to be transparent, share information, talk about my own experience, and if that resonates with you and you want to come here, awesome. Let's have a conversation. I also know it's going to turn some of you off, and that's okay too. So you guys out there can tell me if you think this video is helpful or if this is just me talking to myself in the camera, but I felt like this was worth sharing a little bit. And if I had to sum all this up, I think I would go back to kind of where we started this video, and that is people making the mistake and assuming that one headline or one narrative one national perception can explain an entire city. It can't. You know, Minneapolis is a lot more human than that. It is a lot more layered than that. It is a lot more neighborhood driven than that. And it is a lot more livable than I guarantee most of you guys imagine, having only experienced it from a distance or from national media headlines. Now, that does not mean every concern is overblown. It does not mean we do not have problems and every single part of the city is great. And it definitely does not mean Minneapolis is the right fit for everybody, because it's not. What it does mean, though, is if you are really trying to decide whether or not you would enjoy living here, what you definitely need is you need a more honest and complete picture than what you are getting in the freaking national headlines alone. Call me. I'll be happy to chat with you about it anytime. You know, from my perspective, as someone who's about to turn 46, that's terrible. That's a different story. The honest picture of Minneapolis is not a war zone by any means. It is not a perfect city, and it's also not one simple story. It's a real place with real challenges, real strengths, and a day-to-day feel. I think this is the take-home. If you guys get anything from this video, the day-to-day feel of this city would surprise 99% of you in a very positive way. I feel very comfortable saying that. So, curious to know what you guys think, as always. Again, if you've never been here, don't come at me in the comments and tell me how much Minneapolis sucks, because I'm either just going to delete your comment or laugh at you. Would truly appreciate perspective from locals, perspective from out-of-staters on what you think, what you see, what you feel, because I just don't think we've had a fair shake. Anyways, that's enough from me. My name is Chris. Thank you again for watching. If you want to have this conversation, I'd love to chat with you. Contact information is here. It's also down below. If you're thinking about making a move, reach out. I'll see you on the next video again real soon.